Hey everybody, Tom here. What's going on? It's my Thursday afternoon, just before Friday podcast for February 16th, 2024. Hope you guys had a great week coming off a Super Bowl Sunday. Valentine's Day. Wow. I mean, you know what? Valentine's Day, we've got a couple of things, happening right now after Valentine's Day. I had a good Valentine's Day. I took my wife out kicking and screaming. She did not want to go out. That's typical her. Doesn't want to go out, but then when she's out, everything's great. It's just, I guess it's the preparation. Preparation for my wife to go out is like preparation when I'm putting together a video or a podcast. It's always 5 times as much time it takes to do something live. And for her, my wife looks great. She could go out, she could literally throw on anything and go out and look great. But nope, she has to make sure it's perfection. Markets made new highs. I want to talk about a couple things here. The markets, the new highs, but really, what's higher? What's higher? And I'm not just talking about the week, but I want to look at the year-to-date numbers. I want to talk about the year-to-date numbers with everybody. Bitcoin hit my resistance number. Where does it go from here? And now I want to talk about something I call measuring twice, cutting once, and how measuring twice, cutting once can still result in a screw up. And you'll know what I'm talking about here. And of course, I'm going to figure out how to take that, and I already have, and turn that into something with the markets, because you can measure twice and cut once in the markets. And we'll get there. Hey, markets are hitting new year-to-date numbers again. Seasonally, I told you last week that we were going to run into potentially some seasonal highs right now for the month, and then we should start seeing some pullbacks. Well, I have some other things that might back that up. So, first of all, S&P 500, okay? And I know this is a podcast, and I know you can't see me. So hear the words that are coming out of my mouth here right now. I mean, we're, up from this time last week. S&P had a little bit of a drop off at the beginning of the week, all right? But you look at where we are now, we're coming back up to last week's highs. I mean, since the beginning of the year, if you look at closing highs, we're pretty much on it right now. Back around 500, 501 for the S&P. Who would have thought? And I'm talking about SPY. I mean, we came into the week, Dow hits a major milestone, over 5,000. I mean, golf clap right there. That's something that's never been achieved. I mean, we have the Dow over 38,000 now. I remember years and years ago, Jeffrey Hirsch. If you don't know that name, he is the editor of the Stock Traders Almanac. And he put out some ad about Dow 38,000 when it was trading at 16. And everyone was like, this guy's crazy. Well, crazy just hit the number. And I want to tell you, that was probably 15 years ago. 15 years ago? 15 years ago. It took him 15 years, but it was right. You know what he was thinking 15 years ago? Just the fact that the dollar, you look at the long-term returns on the stock market, and the fact that the dollar's long-term returns just continue to go lower. He was right. Crazy was right. So congratulations, Mr. Hirsch. We're up about 7 or 8% so far just this year alone. Now, keep in mind, we're only 6/7 weeks into the year. And the S&P's tacked on about 1% a week so far. That's incredible. Now, we're in an election year, so we should expect to see double-digit returns. But, wow, I mean, is it possible we're going to get double-digit returns just in the first 2 months? I mean, seasonally, it doesn't look like it, but, I mean, the seasonals could be wrong. Here's some other information that I want to share with you. Okay, you ready? 79. So I took a look at all 500 stocks in the S&P 500. You don't need to see this. You just need to hear it. 79 of the S&P 500 stocks. That's about 17%, I think, 17, 18%. Well, they're at year-to-date highs coming out of this week, which means that, Tom, does that mean the rest of the stocks are not at year-to-date highs? Well, yes, but when you look into it a little bit further, okay, so what's, if you take a look at, if you take a range between 0 and 100, 100 is we're hitting new highs right now. 0 is we're hitting new lows right now. Well, if the average is 50%, how many stocks in the S&P 500 are at or above 50%? Okay. On average, you would say, okay, if there's 500 stocks in the S&P, then 250 of them got to be at least 50% or higher. Doesn't have to be that way, but folks, 288 stocks of the S&P 500 are now above, at or above the 50% mark. That means that they're above average, looking at all the stocks, lows for the year, and all of the stocks, highs for the year. Okay. Now, that being said, 17% of them right now are hitting the 100 mark. They're hitting new highs as we speak. What kind of stocks are they, Tom? All right, I'm going to share a few with you. Not all of them. I mean, if you looked, I said 79 of them were at 100 or more. Let's just talk about a few of them. Meta platforms, book face. That's what my mother-in-law calls it. She says, the book face. I got the book face. So anyway, Meta Platforms, which is Facebook, it is trending right now, hitting all new all-time highs again this week. I'm looking at Thursday, folks. Okay, Thursday numbers, $480.31, which was the high. The low was $347, so it's had a hell of a run so far this year. But I mean, and then you look at like Qualcomm is in there too. There's a tech stock. All right. 156 was the low. And 156 is the high. 136 is the low. All right. What else? There's another tech stock in here, Netflix. Netflix is also hitting year-to-date highs at basically $585. The low is $474. So it's up quite a bit too. But then you got stocks like JP Morgan. All right, JP Morgan Chase. This one is not, 167 was its clocked in low for the year. 178.5 is its clocked in high. So it's not that much higher than it is lower, but it is on its 52-week highs. And then you got stocks like MasterCard is on this list. 419 was the low. 468 is the high in the current right now. You got Hess on here. You got Marathon Petroleum. There's a lot of oil and gas stocks that are at 100% of their highs in an environment where USO, all right, oil is not quite at its low or high. USO is not quite at its low or its high. And so that's an interesting one. But USO is hitting its yearly high. It's just not at a 1 year, 200-day high, but it's clocking out new highs for the year too. All right, so that would make sense. But then there's Southwest Airlines. So how can oil and gas and oil stocks be at year-to-date highs, but then a company like Southwest Airlines, which relies on jet fuel, which is a byproduct of oil and gas, be at 52-week highs as well? Well, that's what we call a relief high, but it's at year-to-date highs. And then you got Ozempic, I'm talking about Eli Lilly, LLY, is sitting at 52-week highs. When will the lawsuits come? That's a pattern. All right. Especially around weight loss. That's a pattern. Ozempic came out and is it Wegovy? Wagyu? I know Wagyu. These drugs came out real fast, almost like artificial intelligence, even though artificial intelligence has been around, or a byproduct of it has been around for a while now. I mean, they started using that name, not even a year ago. And look what happened to NVIDIA. I'll talk about NVIDIA in a minute. Ozempic, LLY, Eli Lilly. Look at the low 614. Look at the highs, 761. And I know you can't see a chart, but I want to tell you this, okay? This thing went parabolic, all right, since the beginning of January. And really, the month of February, we saw this go from 650 to above 7. It's gone up 100 points, folks. I mean, just before and just after earnings. The earnings report came out. It was above expectations. Obviously, that's not a surprise. The stock popped, it dropped. But then guess what happened the next day? It rallied back up again. And it's moved above the highs for earnings. We're just above those highs, and it's moving higher. What is going on with Eli Lilly? What is going on with Ozempic? This thing is going up as waistlines are going down. But, I mean, is there a bubble happening? What do you think? Tell me what you think. You think there's a bubble going on in the market right now? I mean, we're in an election year, so, money's going to be cheap. Money's going to get cheaper. Every politician out there is going to tell you what you want to hear. So it could be an extended bubble. The bubble's getting bigger. So, I look at these highs. Even Disney stock is at year-to-date highs. I thought they were in trouble. I thought everybody was complaining about Disney and, the fact that Netflix is doing so well that, and that people are starting to have to budget, and they're going to have to start deciding which streaming service they want because you can't have them all. So why is Disney moving higher? Even though they've got issues at the top, they've got some streaming issues. Then there's, of course, is Disney woke? Is Disney not woke? Are they part of the? Have they been looped in with Bud Light and the woke terminology? The stock market doesn't think so. Disney stock, new year-to-date highs. Okay. So why are all these stocks going higher and bubbling up? Well, it's because the markets are not logical. And just when you think that it can't go any higher, or just when you think you can't hang on anymore and you've got to be part of the craze, it's often typically that's when the stocks end up going higher. Check this out. We all know what's going on with NVIDIA. I'll talk about NVIDIA. NVIDIA is a stock that is highly valued. Okay. It's a valuable stock. If you haven't looked at it, if you've been under a rock, NVDA is the symbol, and you can see that, this one's moving up. It's got earnings next week. So what's going on with NVIDIA? The $740 stock as it is. The reason why this thing's going up and has been going up, I mean, at the beginning of January, folks, this was below 500. It's now gone up nearly 50% this year alone. Why is it up so much? Well, I'll tell you why. Because analysts now believe that they are going to come out and quadruple last year's revenue this same time last year in its upcoming report, which is next week. All right. Watch the 21st of next week. That's the estimated earnings. So if you look at Logic says, well, the PE ratio on NVIDIA is at 100. Isn't the average at or below 30? Yeah. But if you look at their forward PE and you add that quadrupling revenue in, it comes in around 30. That's how analysts are saying it's still a cheap stock. Now, as an investor, if you're an investor in NVIDIA, it's a good long-term pick. I mean, why would you go, against a long-term pick? And I'm talking years and years. But I mean, last quarter, we saw this thing dip from the 500 level it was at down to in the threes before heading back above 7, which is where we are now. Who's to say it won't do it again? Okay. That's not the story, though. That's not the story I want to tell you. This is the story I want to tell you. I want those of you, if you're in your car, all right, pull over. If you're in bed, wake up. If you're at your desk or you're somewhere else and you're listening to this on a podcast, you can swipe up, you can still listen to me, and you can bring up your broker's platform. And I want you to look at the stock symbol, SMCI. All right, what is SMCI? Super microcomputer. Now, these guys build computers, but they build them with NVIDIA chips in them. Take a look at the price of this thing. In January, it was at $300. Okay. Today, it hit $950 plus. What? Let me say that again. What? Yeah, that was my little John. That was my little John voice. Yeah. I mean, that's what people that own microcomputer right now are doing that. They're doing the little John dance because this thing has tripled in 6 weeks. So I don't own super microcomputer. I just found out about this by doing a little bit of work. 300 and 950. I mean, does SMCI tell us that a bubble is about to pop? So you got to go a little deeper. What is the options volatility say for SMCI? Well, I tell you what, it's interesting because the volatility in NVIDIA is climbing, but NVIDIA's volatility is climbing. It's gone from at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of the year, it was down there in the 30s. Now it's up near 80. It's cranking too, but that's because they got earnings coming out. SMCI already reported earnings back at the end of January. And at that time, SMCI was trading between 450 and 500. Their earnings were better than expectations. They popped, they dropped a little bit, but then they started climbing again. Now, at the time, you had SMC's volatility was at 95. After earnings, it dropped down to 65. You know where it is today? I mean, these guys are what? 3 weeks outside of earnings. And now the options implied volatility is 130 right now. So they have tripled in stock price, but since the earnings came out, they have doubled in option volatility. Is this a bubble? All right. I want you to hang on to that. These are all the high guys. These are all the high flyers. The high flyers are in tech. The high flyers, where else are they? Some of them are in, Southwest Airlines. That's a weird one. But you've got tech, you've got finance, and you've got oil. And I think out of all of these, tech is kind of out of control right now. So then we look at where is the value. Okay, so remember what I said, 17% of the stocks in the S&P 500 are hitting new year-to-date highs, absolute year-to-date highs this week. How many are hitting year-to-date lows? Remember, you got an S&P, guys. You got an S&P that's up 7-8% so far this year. So you don't expect to see many lows. You know how many are hitting zero? The zero on the range of 0 to 100. Who's hitting zero? There's somebody out there. All the S&P 500 stocks are not year-to-date highs. All of them are not in the middle range. We know there is 40+% that are below the average high to low. There are 12 stocks that just hit new lows in the S&P 500. And you know what? These 12 stocks, they're all over the place. All right. Let me tell you what some of them are. Cisco Systems. Yes, a tech stock hit a 52, or not a 52, a year-to-date low. Now, when you look at their high to low, it's not much. I mean, the high was $52.33. The low is $49.47. I mean, they're like 3 points. They're in a 3-point training range so far this year, and they're on the low side of that 3 points. But then you look at 3M, okay? $109 earlier this year, $91 today. Philip Morris, $96 earlier this year, $88.97 today. Amgen. Wait a minute. How is Eli Lilly hitting year-to-date highs and Amgen hitting year-to-date lows? Yeah, 324 was their high for the year. 288 is their low right now. Get this. I got two that are just they're gobsmacking. John Deere. John Deere was near $400 a share early this year. Now it's at $365. And J.M. Smucker, peanut butter, $133.74 earlier this year, $124.48. Let me say that again. And I'm not going to talk numbers. I'm just going to talk names. Cisco. Cisco Systems is an interesting one. But I mean, when you look at, is there a common denominator here? Cigarettes, peanut butter, and heavy machinery. Oh, and Post-it notes. All kind of commodities. I mean, J.M. Smucker is a commodity. John Deere is a commodity. Philip Morris is a commodity. 3M is a commodity. Now, you got Amgen and Cisco in there, and a couple other ones in there as well, like Akami. Akami Technologies is at 52-week lows, but that's because they had an earnings report that was unfavorable, and they fell off. But, yeah, I mean, you got a lot of commodities in here. So these commodities, by the way, were all the rage a couple of years ago coming out of COVID. But they've kind of slumped since then. Are these where the value stocks are? Because some of these are true value. But you also look at, and there's a good argument to be made that Philip Morris, John Deere, J.M. Smucker, I'm just going to say these three, are they're hurting because of interest rates. And that is true. But if you expect rate cuts to happen, shouldn't those that got affected negatively by interest rates be affected positively if they come down? Again, it's all about reward the risk. And so in this group of mess are some good value. It's a matter of doing some homework and figuring out where the value is. You separate the value from the crazy. Speaking of crazy, how about Bitcoin? So Bitcoin this week tops 50K. Doesn't stop there. Hit 52 here very recently. In fact, as I am broadcasting this podcast right now, I see Bitcoin at 52 as we speak. Where does it go from here? Where does it go? When you see Bitcoin tops 50,000 for the first time in 2 years, Bitcoin's trending on Google. All right. If I go in and Google top trends, if I do a top trend on Google searches, trending searches, let's see what's going on in Google right now. You go look at the top trends in Google. India versus England, cricket, ICC, live score, and I'm looking around the world. Al Nassar, electoral, anti-Valentine week? The hell is that? From slap day to breakup day. Don't know that one, folks. Xbox news. You go down a bit and you'll see Bitcoin, you'll see Ethereum, because you know why? Because it made news. All of a sudden, Bitcoin's above 50,000. All right. So let's think here for a moment. Bitcoin's above 50,000. Investopedia says Bitcoin's at 50,000. CoinDesk, Bitcoin crushes through 50,000 for the first time since late 2021. Cointelegraph, Bitcoin looks to surpass Meta in total value as crypto climbs. Crypto is above $1 trillion again, or I believe maybe it's. You know what? Let me get the story right. Let me get the story right, folks. Bitcoin is above $1 trillion in market cap. That hasn't happened since 2021. So, been a little more than 2 years, and here we are. We're right back at it, folks. Bitcoin's moving higher. I had 52,000 as an area where we were going to run into some resistance. It popped that. It actually popped above that, and now it's trading back to that level. And why? I mean, it's one thing for all the news talking heads to say Bitcoin's above 50,000, and of course they're lighting up the trends and they're lighting up the mainstream media. You know what's going to happen soon. If it isn't happening already, I don't have time to sit around and watch CNBC or Bloomberg all day. I don't. And if I did have time, I wouldn't. But, just like the commercials on the Super Bowl, I sometimes like to see commercials that are happening on the financial channels. You know what I'm starting to see a lot of? Ozempic. I'm so sick of Ozempic. You know what else I'm seeing too? What's the other one I see all the time? I actually changed the name, the lyrics to that one too. That I crapped in a box. You know which one I'm talking about? Cologuard. I crapped in a box. I did it my way. That's the one. I see that a lot. Oh God. That's not where I wanted to go. You know what's going to happen? Now you're going to start to see more and more ETFs, ETF commercials for Bitcoin and crypto ETFs. You're going to see more and more, trade Bitcoin through us. That's all going to start popping back again because we're above 50,000 and everyone's excited because Bitcoin's above 50,000. And I mean, here's the news coming out of ETFs. New spot coin ETFs amassed 200,000 Bitcoin in less than 1 month of trading. IBIT, which is BlackRock's, by the way, $3 billion ETF market cap right now and climbing. They are now atop the spot Bitcoin pile. They surpassed GBTC. GBTC had a $2 billion head start on them, more than that. But GBTC had outflows, okay? That means they were having more people that were leaving than coming. That started to finally, drop for them. It started slowing down. But a lot of folks were selling because it got high real quick. And a lot of folks were basically saying to themselves, I could go to BlackRock and I could do it for less fees. That was a big part of it too. But one of the biggest reasons why Bitcoin's going higher is because think about this, roughly 20 million Bitcoin out there right now. And I'm not talking about the stuff that's left to be mined, but a little more than 20 million, I think, is out there right now, give or take. And, if you take that, 30% of that is gone. It'll never be found again because, it's under some dump. All right. It's at the dump in somebody's hard drive. It's in papers. They put their private key. They printed it out on paper that has since then, withered away. You can't figure out what letter or number, or it's just lost on a computer. You can't find it. That's my brother-in-law's excuse. He supposedly mined Bitcoin back in 2010, 2011. And if he did, he's got to have at least, if this is true, he's got to have at least 50 Bitcoin because this was, I think, even before pooling was happening. And so if he had 50 Bitcoin, what's 50 Bitcoin worth right now? 50 Bitcoin. I mean, 50 times. That's $2.5 million. $2.5 million. He said it's somewhere in upstate New York. That's the best that he can come up with. He's part of that pool, if indeed he mined that. I believe he did. He keeps going up there, thinking he's going to find it. But, so 30% of that's gone. And of the 70% that's left, 80% of that is held by hodlers. It's locked away. So what we're basically left with is about 2 million Bitcoin that's being traded right now. And if BlackRock just sucked up 200,000 of it, or BlackRock and others, I think BlackRock is accounting for 70,000 Bitcoin in their own ETF. But right now, let's say spot, ETFs are have now taken 10% off the float, and they'll take another 10% soon. What's going to happen is these guys are going to be controlling a lot of this. This is going to push this piece higher. It's going to push Bitcoin higher. Just because they're continuing to do this on the buy side. They have to hold it. So that's what's going on, folks. I mean, let's just get right to the chase. Here's my numbers. I did a recent video on this, and then by recent, in the last couple of weeks. And I talked about things like support levels at 45,000, support level at 39,200. But I also have, now that we've hit this 52 area, if and when we do get a support, if we do, I got the next stop at the closing all-time highs, 67, baby. And by the way, Ethereum, it's hanging out there too. If you take a look at Ethereum and you look at what it's done from the 4,000 level, which was its all-time high roughly, down to what was it, 1,100? It went down to maybe a little less. I think it went down below 1,000. So, it's gone down when Bitcoin's gone down. It's gone up when Bitcoin's gone up. I think that we hit that 4,000 mark soon too. I mean, ETH's trading at 2,800 right now per coin. And like I said, their all-time highs are around 4,000. I think 4,000 is going to hit later this year too. I expect all this to happen before the election. All right. What's the big news? Halving. It's coming up. What's the even bigger news? Cyclical bull. All right. Cyclical bull doesn't end in April. Cyclical bull doesn't even end at the end of 2024. I think cyclical bull crests in 2025. Maybe even a little bit later than that. But I think 2025. All right. Yeah. So that's what I think. All right. I'm going to finish up on this. Here's a little story for you. Measured twice, cut once, and still screwed up. That's me. And measured twice. I mean, if it's anything I've learned and continue to learn is always measure twice so you only have to cut once. Any of you that do not know what I'm talking about, it could be a piece of wood. It could be a piece, making a table, or in this case, and I'll tell you the story, all right? Because how do you measure twice and cut once and still screw up? Yeah, I'll tell you, I did that last weekend with a lot of distractions. So let me give you a story, all right? I live in a nice size house. It's not new. It's literally was gutted. It was a total gut job and remodel. All right, it's an older house. And so in my house here in Florida, we don't have a lot of closet space. I mean, we actually have to get creative. The pantry for the kitchen, it's about, I want to say, 12 to 14 feet long. Sounds like a big pantry till you realize it's only about 4 feet wide. And so when you have something that's 4 feet wide, you can't do a U shape. I got a door down there that's got a hot water heater in it in the back corner, so I can't do a U shape anyway. Best I can do is an L. So I can go down 12 feet, and then I can go to the right about 3 feet. So about 12 by 3 is what I got on the L. Okay. So anyway, it had now this thing is it's almost 10 feet high, so you got a lot of height on it. So we have these just shelves in there. Well, stuff gets buried back behind shelves. If you don't, I'm sure you know it. You know, you think you have something you don't, and you think you don't have something you got too much. So anyway, my wife decided it was time to pull the shelves out, and we needed to do an organized kitchen pantry. So she wanted actual cabinets, actual something with different walls where you could have different boxes to put things in. So we looked at a lot of different things. And what we know is this, there's quality and there's quantity in everything. And, quantity is press board and quality is really, I mean, most places, when you go tell them you want kitchen cabinets in the pantry, they say, well, we don't do that. We don't measure for that. They want a closet organizer. Closet organizers, they'll charge you thousands of dollars, and you end up with something that, if you put too much weight on it, it's going to get crushed. Anyway, so we decided to measure, and and of course, my wife left the measuring up to me, and so I measured this pantry, and so first of all, we contracted out some people to do it. I mean, $30,000 really for a pantry? What's going on here? To put a L-shaped cabinets on the wall and then a countertop, like I have a little butler's pantry. Out of principle, folks, can't do it. Can't do it. I cannot. Maybe it's the age in me. Maybe it's the fact that I know what the price was prior to COVID, and now I'm getting the COVID bump when it shouldn't be there that much. So I just really can't do it. So I decided to do it myself. Okay, so and so I mean by myself, I mean with my family. My brother-in-law is a carpenter; he can do anything. It's just hard to get him. So and by the way, off topic, if you want decent cabinets to organize your pantry, might I suggest plywood kitchen cabinets? And you go and you special order them, and then it's not kitchen cabinets you want. What you want is you want the 18-inch base if you've got a small space in your pantry, and you want 12-inch. You want the wall cabinets, okay? And so what we did was we wanted openness in there. We didn't want doors because you can't open doors in these places that are too small. So what you want is the bookshelf cabinets, and they could special order them for you. Anyway, this wasn't cheap, but it was a lot cheaper than what the installer wanted to do it. Much cheaper. All right. Hey, I know this isn't a home improvement podcast, so let's just move on. So anyway, how do you measure twice, cut once, and then screw up? And in this case, it's measure twice, order once. And then when the stuff shows up and you start unboxing it and you look at the walls, you go, what did I do wrong? Here's where things went sideways. All right. I take the plans to Lowe's. Sorry, Home Depot. Order the cabinets. They arrive a month later. It was already 2 weeks later than they were supposed to show up. I screwed up. I didn't screw up the length. I didn't screw up the width. You know what I screwed up on? The height. Somehow I measured the height as 9'6", but then when I wrote it down, I wrote 9'1". I think I tried to write a 6, but I did the 6 squiggle so small it was a 1. I took up there. I got the guy measuring. If you ever gone to do, to do kitchen cabinets or measure something or to get something custom done, it's like it takes forever. The guy's in there on that CAD design stuff. I don't remember. I don't know what they call it now. I think it was called AutoCAD back in the day, where they're custom designing your cabinets for you. And he's doing this and this, and he's rotating it around. And man, I'm telling you, my eyes are just popping out of my head. I'm walking around. I'm like, let me look at countertop. Let me look at this. Let me look at that. Call me when you're done. Calls me when they're done. I take a look at it. I'm like, well, this looks good. And my wife's like, yeah, I like this. And so I screwed up because I didn't look at the height and I didn't remeasure everything the third time like I should have. Cabinets show up and I've got 60-inch floor. I mean, all, from the ceiling down cabinets. We were supposed to account for 4 inches. Because, for ventilation. Nope. I got to shove these things all the way to the ceiling. And even shoving them to the ceiling, I don't have enough room from where the bottom ends to where the top of the base cabinets are. It's like 12 inches. You can't put anything in 12 inches. You can't put a coffee machine. You can't put small appliances. It just doesn't happen. Okay? and I'm sure a lot of you listening to the podcast, if you're still listening to me, you're like, where the hell is he going with this? Folks, measure more than once. And I'm talking about the stock market. I mean, what am I doing? What am I doing with these cabinets? I was going to send them back, take the 20% restocking fee and start over. My brother-in-law, the genius that he is, says, you know what we can do? You need a few inches. I'm going to cut the toes, kicks off the bottoms down enough where, you can barely get a toe in. And he said, I'm going to cut the tops by 6 inches. And I'm like, how do you cut a bookcase 6 inches lower and make it still make it look like a bookcase? He goes, I'm going to take the top. I'm going to glue it back in. I'm going to take 6 inches out of the middle of this thing. And that's what he is doing right now while I'm doing this podcast. He's outside cutting these things. And I know he's going to do a good job because I know what he does. The thing is, though, is that he's doing a lot more work based on me not measuring correctly. Where am I going with this, folks? You can do this in the stock market too. If you see a trade that looks too good to be true and you go and put it on, I'm telling you, you're going to probably regret it because you didn't do your homework on it. I have to constantly do this with put selling. So right now, I'm looking at the markets, and NVIDIA has an earnings announcement next week. NVIDIA's options are looking juicy right now as they head into earnings. And I mean, everybody thinks NVIDIA is going to make a big move one way or another. I mean, how much more could they go up? I don't know. I mean, when I look at something like NVIDIA's, options, they're expensive right now, but they should be. But you know what else? You know what else is expensive? I mean, NVIDIA might be expensive, but then when I look at Riot blockchain, and that's that Riot blockchain symbol for those of you that are, hanging out, listening to me, it's RIOT. If you look at Riot blockchain, they're IV. So they've got earnings coming out in 14 days soon. Their IV is above 125. And it's always been high, but it was at 90 at the beginning of February. I mean, we're 15 days into February, and this thing's already gone from 90 to the high was, it's above 125. They still got 2 weeks to go. So, when I look at that, I think, wow, there's a lot of people out there that think Riot blockchain, even though it's trading at 18 today, a lot of folks think it's worth 10. That's 40% off, folks. And they think that it's worth 10, maybe even 2 weeks from now. And it very well could drop. So I say, if you're looking at NVIDIA, you're looking at Riot, you're looking at these very expensive options going into earnings. A lot of the traders believe these are going to have big, big double-digit moves by the end of the month. Okay? I mean, let me just tell you, go out when you can. Look at the Riot blockchain April 19th. Okay? I know that's not at the end of this month, but you go look at the $10 puts for April 19th. They're getting 50 cents plus for these right now. That's 5% on the 10 put. The 10 put is 40% below today's stock price. Tells me one of two things. Either Riot's really overpriced right now, or traders are expecting the crypto market to have a double-digit pullback real soon. Do your homework. Measure 3 times before you put that order in. All right? Folks, that's the podcast today. Feel free to leave your comments. I would most appreciate it. Anyway, have a good rest of your weekend. We got President's Day on Monday. That means a 3-day weekends for those of us that are 100% in the stock market or financial otherwise. So for those of you, enjoy your weekend, government holiday, and I'm going to be right back at it in front of this screen come Tuesday. We'll talk then. Bye now.